and good afternoon to people joining from the UK, and if people are joining from Europe. Really glad to be here. Sarthak, as you know, is an organization that has done a wonderful job in promoting equality, empowerment of people who have some kind of disability that prevents them from entering the mainstream. Sarthak has abolished, eliminated, reduced those barriers for entry for people who want to gain employment, who want to be, I think, in a way, helped by showing by promoting this equality, because we actually don't need to be in the office all the time. So somebody doesn't, he can't do or she can't do that job. So in this new age, we are trying to further this cause of Sarthak. And with that view, we thought that we might hold a session with people who are experienced in the sector in India and in the UK to see if we can adopt some practices from here for Sarthak's benefit in India. So that's the purpose of the webinar that we have today. That what's the state of the social services sector for people with disability in the UK? And can we adopt, can we learn from this and use some of the ideas for Sarthak's work in India? Now, I was going through while preparing for this webinar, I looked at what the UK does, and I was surprised and rather impressed by how the government is actually keeping it so close to their heart, to their work. They have a strategy which is called the National Disability Strategy. It is a document that you can read online, but it has three parts, and all three are very, very essential. It's about what are the practical steps that we need now to improve disabled people's everyday lives. So, what are their rights and perceptions? What do we need to do to promote better housing for them? To do for transport, for jobs, education, shopping, mobility, leisure, and public services. The second is the second part of their strategy is disabled people's everyday experience at the heart of policy making. So can we use this to influence? So can we influence the policy of the government in India? But so how can they keep people with disability at the heart of what they do? And how do we track that progress? And third, a cross-government effort to actually transform the disabled people's everyday lives. So here, can we influence the cabinet office? Can we work with the Department for Business, Energy, and Industrial Strategy? Can we work with the Departments of Education, Environment, Health and Social, Transport? There is so much work that needs to be done, and it has to be done at every level. So whether it's at the government level, people who are supporting these causes, and whether it is through work of the NGOs that are active in India. So there's a lot of work. So I would now hand over to Dr. Agarwal so he can share his vision for Sarthak and what his ideas are about gaining some of the insights from the UK regions for India.
Thank you very much, Abhishek ji. Thank you very much. And thank you all the panelists. People who are today will be having a webinar. With God grace, we registered in UK last year, and because of COVID, I think we were not able to scale up, but now we decided to have this series of webinars first Saturday of the month, so that we can have something on the to scale up this UK Sarthak UK chapter. As far as disability is concerned, I am sharing about India. In India, we started in 2004 to be practicing dentist vision in 2004 because of macular degeneration, and 2004 to 7 like challenging for me to survive in this world because I was struggling for. Then I realized people with disability, and when I researched across India, I found that there were organizations who were doing skilling of people with disability, who were doing who were providing assistive devices to people with disability, but employability was not there was lack of awareness about employability when it comes to hiring of people with disability. Not a single Indian corporate was ready to hire people with disability, and on other side, NGOs were not aware where to train, where to place people with disability. And as a professional, I thought to contribute for this by creating a organization which can empower them by giving them livelihood. So 2008 we started India chapter, and I think 2008 to 2020, 14 years, we have trained around 35,000 youth with all disability. They are blind, challenged, people who are hearing impaired, people who are intellectual disability are empowered. They are working with 2,000 Indian corporates, and corporates corporates like Amazon, Walmart, or Flipkart, or IBM, or Wipro. So they are working across retail, hospitality, BPO, manufacturing, and other sectors. But when we talk about Indian numbers of Indian people with disability, they are around 15 crore, 10 to 15 crore. So it's a huge number. And till date, we have outreached around point, you can say point to 3 million people with disability. So there is a huge task which we have to take in partnership with smaller NGOs, and that's why we created a platform in India called India Disability Empowerment Alliance, where smaller NGOs in the rural part of this network, and now we are capacity building these NGOs so that they also can come in partnership with Sarthak and empower people with disability through this network. And secondly, we are creating a global resource center in Gurugram. It's near to New Delhi, and we are looking support to create this infrastructure. So global resource center is a infrastructure. It's a model where all disability can come with all solutions, with all training and activities will be there. So we are seeking support for creation of this global resource center. And in the end, I like to thank all of you for joining this webinar. And we will continue with this series of webinar. And my special thanks to our UK ambassador, Sri Devasis Majumdarji, for organizing this. I think he was introducing most of his colleagues there on this webinar. Special thanks to Sandeep Bhargavaji and other national board members for joining this webinar, and team UK, Abhishek ji, Ashruti ji, and other team members who organized this work. So my appeal to all of you to contribute for this cause, because here in India you have your brothers and sisters who are people with disability struggling for livelihood, struggling for rehabilitation. If you can contribute, it will be a great help to them so that they also can live their life with dignity and integrity, and can be can be a part of the campaign that Indian government is running, called Inclusive India. So thank you very much once again, and once again I like to request all of you and to please join us in this journey so that we can empower each disabled person in India. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Agarwal. And now I invite Mr. Majumdar himself. Mr. Majumdar, he was born in Patna, but now lives in the UK. He's a British citizen and is a Marine Chief Engineer by profession. He has been a civil servant for many years in the UK and has been the CEO of a Caribbean government St. Kitts shipping ministry. He is presently the CEO and founder of Seed Maritime UK, which is a maritime safety organization. And he's involved in a lot of community projects in the UK and is delighted to be with Sarthak. So, Mr. Majumdar, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Abhishek. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. And good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I'm overwhelmed to be a small part of Sarthak and honored to be a part of this webinar here today. I'm proud to be part of Sarthak UK chapter, and as a team, we are striving to reach differently abled people in the United Kingdom and back home in India. I like to mention that an individual's disability can play a major role in his or her life. This can be positive or negative. But overcoming these challenges and developing confidence is the vital and admirable what we are trying to achieve. Now, as we know, as Mr. Avishek said, that Sarthak, is a educational trust and works towards people's empowerment with disability, early intervention, inclusive of education, vocational skill building, and sustainable employment. The last 14 years, Sarthak has got reached out about 1 million people disabled, providing with employment. Last year, Sarthak has successfully registered here in the UK as an entity, as a charitable organization, and we got registered here as a charity organization in the UK with a similar vision to empower people with disability so that they can live their life with dignity and respect, as Mr. Dr. Agarwal just mentioned. Now we have more than continue now. We have 1.4 million in the UK, and we have 14.1 million of people in the UK. Now, my thought, it's our utmost duty to allow people with disability to experience what they deserve. We are all different, but very much also at the same time, because disability helps in subsiding the stereotype mindset of society, hence providing vast opportunities for everyone to get involved in creating a positive, inclusive society for all. That's all we are looking for. Let them have all the opportunities what they can, and how much we can do. Like for me, to the last breath, I'm happy to do anything to make smile in a disabled, differently able person's face. The most noble part of Sartre, I found me, is not only to provide training but also to provide jobs. Only when a differently able person gets a job and earns money, then he or she really feels they are not a burden to me or to the government. Because when these persons grow up, they always feel every day to is a we are normal. We plan for tomorrow. For them, every is a difficult day. So okay, so on this in Cardiff, okay, and I started start talk with the local community recently. Following the UK's departure from the EU, the Welsh government, which is the government of Wales, uh, wants to ensure that the disabled people's voices are heard and that they have access to the specialized information, including advice and support, with changes that affect them. Now, there, as we know, all the can know Disability Equality Forum. We will try to work with them in the future. Definitely going to work, and the Welsh government needs people and groups like Sarthak to come and help the disabled people. UK disability, there was a UK disability survey which was launched last year, I think in January, went on till April. Thousands of people responded to inform the strategy, as Abhishek was talking about the strategy, including disabled people, their families, and carers. The UK, Welsh, Scottish, and the Northern Ireland government in the United Kingdom share a strong commitment to supporting the disabled people to enjoy the choice and control so vital and independent living for the disabled. Sarthak UK will be working with these organizations in the future and to bring a smile in a differently able person. That's what our whole idea is, and we will work together as a team to achieve that. Now, I'm in contact with renowned personalities in the corporate world and the maritime world, and I'm happy to say the maritime people who are well placed has come forward to join me with Sarthak and donate generously for the UK growth and the growth in India. That's a very pleasing thing for me. People have shown their interest. I would like to thank all the panelists who have agreed to participate today in a short notice and gave their precious time to be here today. Now, I don't know whether the chief guest has reported or not. The chief guest reported. Can you see Shishi Sharma ji? Not yet. Anyway, today what the chief guest was a Bollywood actor, and he's having a shoot now in a place called Rajkot as in the afternoon. And he said he'll take some time and join, but because he's not in as yet. If he joins, we'll talk to him, talk about him, and let him uh, say a few words to us. Okay. So that is what I had to say. That is my journey so far, and we want to. This is just the beginning. We are new here in the UK, and but we are totally determined to help the differently abled people in any respects. And I thank all the panelists who has come forward, who's going to say their versions, and we can have a question and answer session later on. So over to you, Abhishek, to continue. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Thanks. So I will introduce all our panelists now. You can see them on your screen. The first we have is Tracy Lazard. She's the CEO of Inclusion London. She's herself a person with disability, but has 30 years of experience working in a variety of disabled people's organizations, all run and controlled by disabled people, where she promoted disability equality, co-production with decision makers, and the social disability. She has been in CEO positions for the last 20 years and joined the Inclusion London team as CEO in 2011. She's passionate about value and contribution DPOs make to both equality and inclusion, but also to delivering effective and accessible services that make a real difference to disabled people's lives. Next, we have Robin Christopherson, who is head of digital inclusion at AbilityNet. Recognized as an expert on accessibility and digital inclusion, Robin is an MBE of UK tech charity AbilityNet and is a regular speaker raising awareness of the power and potential of technology to transform people's lives. Robin has extensive experience as a judge in several notable awards, including the Digital Leaders 100, the Recruitment Industry Disability Awards, the Tech for Good Awards, and the Global Mobile Awards at Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. We also have Ranjan Singh, the MD of Dreams Unlimited. He's a marine engineer by profession. He's a musician and an adventurer. With BP, led in oil shipyards around the world. He is, I'm sure, very delighted to be with us at Southwark and try to contribute towards Southwark's growth in UK and Europe. We also have with us Giselle Ho. She's the co-founder of the Master Group, which is headquartered in Hong Kong. It is an event venue business where she managed to grow its location from 1 to 3 in just less than 2 years. To on full-time as community manager press, and in the past was the AVP of experience at DBS Private Bank. I welcome her here and again hope that she will carry Southwark's flag and help the organization grow. And with us, Jain, who is founder chairman of the companies. He is at the Institute of Marine Engineers and is also the chair of Interlinks group of companies in London. With experience of Lions International since 1995, and also being the chartered president of London St. John's Wood Club, we hope that he brings like-minded people into the fray, carry some work he is at the moment. We also have with us Burkett, who is ex-senior management person from Capital, from Royal Bank of Ireland, and he started his shipping career in 1984 and went on sailing till the end of that decade. He has been an entrepreneur, starting a factory in Hyderabad with a few friends, has completed a BA from London Business School, and embarked upon a second career in finance at leading institutions in the UK and globally. He travels a lot. He's worked in Chicago, Dublin, and Zurich. And we are very happy that he took some time out and has become a speaker on this panel. We have K.S. Patnayak, who's the director of Red Dot Marine. He is a marine engineer with over 30 years of experience in ship management. With his education and his attitude, he has been awarded with the Indiewood Maritime Excellency Award for Entrepreneurship. He has founded companies for ship management, shipbuilding, ship agency, chartering, and bunkering. And he is in Singapore, has been there for more than 2 decades. So I would thank him as well as Mr. Majumdar for him and spreading Southwark's wings far and wide. We also have with us Raj Iyer, who's the CTO of Rackspace Technologies. He has been involved in social and charitable institutions and activities in the UK for over 2 decades. He is a founding member of 2 charities in the UK. And I also want to thank him plus congratulate him on also hosting the first webinar that we ever did for Southwark last year. We have with us Mrs. Alka Kapoor, who is a yoga coach. She has a degree in business management from BITS Pilani, and a change of direction and teaching young children through modern techniques became a path for her that balanced home life with work. That's when a love for yoga developed, and Cyprus gave an opportunity to become a yoga teacher. She teaches Hatha yoga and also teaches Indian cooking and baking to friends. So welcome, Mrs. Kapoor. We are really happy that you decided to join us. And last, we have Mr. Sandeep Bhargav, who is a former executive vice president from Vodafone Idea Limited, India. And he has a lot of experience working with the government in public policy domain in the television industry. Advisory board member at Sarthak and is president for the National Ability of India. With that, I open the panel to discussion to welcome first Tracy Lazard on her experience of working in this sector and how the UK government, how the public and private sectors are contributing towards making the UK an open place for people with disability.
Thank you. Thanks very much for inviting me to take part today. I mean, it's really interesting because a couple of you talked about the national disability strategy that the government has just come up. Actually, that strategy is just being ruled out. Disabled the government to court because they failed to engage and work with disabled people on developing that strategy. So for disabled people and the disabled people's rights movement, it was quite an important victory actually, because that strategy, although superficially it tackles a lot of the areas of life where disabled people need equality and we experience discrimination, the strategy was not a strategy, and it was not a roadmap for equality for disabled people. And the government effectively pretended to consult with disabled people, and our court system said exactly that it wasn't to the standard that's required. And I think really that's at the heart of what I would kind of say as kind of core principles, is that kind of whatever we do in the disability space, we need to ensure that disabled people are leading that change ourselves. I always like to make an analogy. If you had a women's organisation delivering services to women, but it was run by men, I think culturally in the UK, that would be deemed not acceptable and also a bit odd, and probably there would be questions about how good those services were because they are by men for women. Yet in the disability space, it's still absolutely standard and routine for organisations not to be led by disabled people. So I think absolutely critical. And when you look at the timeline of progress towards disabled people's equality and inclusion in the UK, it's the timeline of disabled people organising ourselves, so creating our own organisations. That's absolutely not, we need allies and we need organisations that provide a range of support, but it has to be with disabled people leading that change and you kind of co-producing services with disabled people. And that's why national disability strategy was ruled because it failed to do that. And unfortunately, our UK government, it's a bit better in Wales and even better in Scotland, but the UK government has consistently failed to engage with disabled people. So we have real challenges. We have a backdrop of retrogression of disabled people's quality of life and rights in the UK, which have been exacerbated by COVID. 6 out of every 10 deaths in the UK were disabled people. And that's not anything to do with there's nothing inevitable about that. That's about structural inequality, just like lots of people of colour experienced higher rates of death under COVID, so did disabled people, because we are poorer, we tend to live in poor housing, we have limited access to services and support. So there's this is about structural inequality, and it's about taking a human rights perspective. And that's what I would absolutely say, that, for too long, disability is not a medical issue. Ultimately, it's not a medical issue. The bits of our bodies or minds that work differently, there's not really much you can do about that. Yeah, medical interventions are really important, but actually this is about human rights. It's about social inclusion, and it's about disabled people leading that change. And I think we, much rather than look to the National Disability Strategy, I would say, let's look to the UN Convention on the Rights of Disabled People. The UN CRPD, which both kind of India and the UK have signed up to, is a really great framework for showing how you strategically start to address disabled people's inequality across all areas of life. So I would say, get disabled people at the heart of your organisation, understand this as a human rights issue, and co-produce your services with disabled people.
Thank you, Tracy. Very interesting points you make there, and it's all very relevant. When you say that disabled people should be at the heart of the organization, you need to ask them what they need. So I think one of the reasons you're saying the UK policy failed, was ruled unlawful, is it did not consult the people who are actually affected by it. So is the government now going back to the drawing board and preparing a new policy, or it's been shelved forever?
Well, that's a really good question, because for years we haven't had a strategy, and so we were calling for a strategy, and then the government pretended to consult, and the legal ruling was, if you're going to pretend to consult, then you need to do it properly. At the moment, I think the government is going to appeal that ruling. I don't think they've got much chance of winning. So for us, we've reached out to the government to say, you need to work with us about strategically to engage with us, so that this strategy reflects the priorities of the government, but also reflects the priorities of disabled people in the UK. And we've really big complex issues and exclusion overlaid with the act of austerity in the UK of the last kind of 12 with kind of COVID. It's a very challenging situation. I don't know if we will carry on lobbying and campaigning.
Thank you. And I just the same thing to Mr. Bhargav, because he's been on Sarthak's board for a long time, and he has been dealing with corporate affairs with the government. So, Bhargav, do we have something of this sort, better digital inclusion or disability inclusion policy or a strategy by?
So yes, we have a policy which was framed a couple of years ago. It was out for consultation also. Even in the telecom domain, there was a policy chapter which talked about the people with disabilities. The policy does exist, and we keep on feeding them with changes and edits which are there. Yes, it is existing.
And in terms of input, because one of the reasons why it was lawful in the UK was that it did not actually consult with the people who are actually affected. So the policy in India, is it made consultation with people ability, the work of bureaucrats?
I'm not sure if the people with disabilities are involved, but a lot of organizations which cater to them were possibly were a part of these formulations. And use there or not as it is, but the associations like and the NGOs like ours who have been doing a lot of work were a part of this.
Okay, thank you, thank you. And then Robin Christopherson at Ability. So, what are companies, business in the UK doing to make the workplace a more equal place for people with disability?
Thank you very much. So yeah, we're a technology and disability, and we equally disable people who need to know about the adjustments that are built into their interests. And we have a brilliant resource called mycomputermyway.com. So rather selfishly, if you just remember one thing from today, it's mycomputermyway.com, and you can look at all the adjustments that are built into iOS, Android, macOS, Windows, because it is, I would argue, the majority of what people with a range of impairments require to be able to, work at their best, whether it's at home or in the workplace. And obviously with hybrid work is often, the same thing these days, but certainly to live a digital life. We also work with businesses to try and make sure that people can access services online, whether it's public sector services, which are very important these days, obviously, or whether it's just being able to, do their shopping online and have things delivered to them in a pandemic environment, or whether it's to be able to just, stay in communication with loved ones, etc. So when it comes to businesses, it's really, really important to make sure that you do things in a proactive way rather than a reactive way. And our emphasis over the last months and years has been shift left. I'm sure you've heard that phrase. Ideally born accessible, which means that inclusion is factored in from the beginning. Right from the start, you have a set of personas that you bear in mind when your designers, your developers are building a new product or service. Rarely do they have disability built into their demographics. Tracy was talking earlier about how disability is often overlooked, and it's been a long time in coming, this national disability strategy, and it's brilliant because it's very aspirational, but at the same time it definitely wasn't developed with us, and we all know that phrase, nothing about us without us. So we really needed to be more hands-on in that process, and I'm hoping that that's going to carry on being the case and will improve, and the actual money funding will be applied to the aspirational goals of that digital strategy. But organizations that we work with, we help make sure that their websites and their apps are inclusive, are increasingly using processes that will embed accessibility rather than firefighting, or using organizations like ourselves to kind of ad hoc do audits and disabled user testing, etc. That shift left means that you have to have the right tooling, the right training, the right C-level support, the right capabilities, etc. within organizations. And there's a brilliant model called the Digital Accessibility Maturity Model, DAM. If you just search for that on AbilityNet, then that's a free downloadable pack. Organizations can go through that process and can identify all the gaps in their capabilities, their procurement, their policies within their organization, to make sure that they start embedding a level of maturity. So that's new, and arguably it has increased tenfold during the pandemic. The organizations are actually thinking, digital is so important, we need to now bake this in, because we've been, throwing money at the accessibility problem, particularly with the public sector bodies' accessibility regulations that have had a huge impact over the last couple of years. They're realizing that they need to work smarter, and they need to start building things in a more mature way, so that people aren't going to be just patching on accessibility at the end, which we all know often doesn't result in an accessible product that is inclusive for all to use. So, yep, brilliant that the government brought in the public sector regulations, that bits of legislation from the EU made it but now Brexit happened, there doesn't seem to be appetite for bringing in the legislation from Europe, which other sectors, not just public sector. So that's one of the casualties of Brexit. So I would want to see in the National Digital Strategy a commitment to providing the proactive monitoring and reporting by a central government organisation of other sectors and not just the public sector, because Brexit, unfortunately, put a stop to that, second part of the legislation. So, yep, here's hoping the digital strategy will actually have funding behind it and real teeth to make sure that, in the UK and also being an example for further afield, things are going to improve very significantly for disabled people.
Very interesting. So, are there to monitor progress that you spoke about and the tools available to government, to the sector, are they making use of them? And do we have any metrics of comparison in how the accessibility changed over the last 5 years, or say pre-pandemic to post-pandemic? Do we see any tangible change?
There have been lots of interesting surveys and research. Accenture did a brilliant report. The Clickaway Pound is another report that is well worth looking at. Lots of data there showing the importance of digital inclusion. It's very, if an organisation is still needing to be won over, the of doing an inclusive way. One thing that we stress very strongly, Ability Net, is that mobile. We're living in a mobile first. Google has published much data showing that I think it's about 62% of websites visited on a daily basis are from mobile. So well over everyone's using mobile, and that's computing on the edge. That's extreme computing for everybody. Juggling your phone one-handed, small sheet of shiny glass on a sunny, noisy bus or cafe. There are so many times when you have exactly the same requirements as people that have 24/7. So for those minutes, in very real terms, impaired and need exactly the same requirements. So it's very strong advocating for inclusion being for every single user. Within organizations, absolutely, you can start. Our budgets will fall based on doing things in a more inclusive way, and how customer satisfaction, etc., will rise. So we've got some very useful tools. We've got an internal diversity wellbeing tool called Clear Talents, which can provide very valuable MI around how your organization is improving internally, and that digital accessibility maturity model is just one aspect of kind of not only of your customers, but also for your disabled employees as well.
I want to little towards, so there's much talk of inclusion and empowerment, but in the workplace or in the industry, are we seeing more people getting employed? And we have many C-level people on this forum today. It is not a question pointed at anyone in specific, but if you can share examples or say progress you've seen in hiring people with disability, do you see that your workplace has more disabled people than before?
Sorry, was that to me again?
No, this is,
sorry.
I didn't want to put anybody on the spot, but it's only for example. It's not maybe not your organization, but do you see that happening? Because we are asking these questions because these are difficult. These are tough questions. We can preach, but do we follow? And if we don't follow, then what are the challenges that follow? The idea of this webinar is to come up with ideas which make it actually easier for people to gain that kind of employment. So what is it that's preventing us from hiring people with disability?
So let me step in there. This is Harshad here.
Hi.
As you know, I've worked with a lot of service-oriented companies, and what we find is that when we go in with our recruitment drives, we have a normal policy which says that we will not really look at anybody, or we will look at everybody regardless of their their abilities and their any have. And that is stated clearly in every job application or job posting that goes out. We found that it was very difficult to encourage people, if you like, with certain disabilities to come in because of preconceived notions that they had about our company, about our industry, and things like that. So what we did in one specific instance was we actually went out and we talked to people in disability, in organizations, for people who were either needed wheelchair assistance or anything like that, but who could still work on computers. And we talked to those kinds of associations and got people to come into our office, and we kind of presented to them to say, this is still an organization which you can work with. We did get some interest. We got a lot of interest actually, and we recruited 2 individuals but we thought it was a little bit, and I think that's perceptions of the service industry or all companies, things in terms of and making sure that everything's acceptable and all of that, but there isn't a sort of an emotional or a mental connection to them. And that was the sort of feedback we got when these individuals started working with us. It was wonderful though. When they did join, it changed everything. It is a lot to do with how you treat people, the dignity that you show them, make sure that they have everything at their fingertips so that they can do their job without people coming in and trying to help them in any case. We did not, the help wasn't the word that we were looking to use. So I think a bit of success, but in general terms, I think we have a lot of work to do.
So what would promote, if this were to go further, what is missing, which is not letting it gather full steam?
Can I just come in? Because we do a lot of work advising employers. And I think it's some of the elements that have just been talked about, which is about being very active, about employers understanding that being a good employer in the 21st century is being a personalised and inclusive employer. And actually, really, that a lot of the support that disabled people need in the workplace is the support that most people might need at some point, whether it's because they're parents and need flexible working, or because they're kind of caring for older people. I think the idea of kind of personalised is absolutely the heart of kind of good employment practice. But I think it's about being really holistic. So that's everything from the CEO being really clear that this is an inclusive company and organisation, and we're not going to be as good as we can unless we're really representing the communities that we work with and serve. So it's about the messaging, it's about explicit commitments, but it's also about reporting and being accountable to about the diversity of your staff team. We would really recommend disability equality training, but it's also about policies. Do you have a reasonable adjustment policy in your organisation so that staff and managers know what to do when you either recruit a disabled person or somebody acquires an impairment? Once they are, even if they're already working with you, what are those reasonable adjustments? What can you do? How do you support disabled staff? A lot of bigger employers along the lines of, for example, around race and gender, are creating disabled staff networks so that network can be a source of peer support and then also influence policy and work with the employer. So I think it's very much about taking a kind of systems approach across every area of the kind of the organisation to really embed disability equality and inclusion. And it is working, but unfortunately the stats remain the same, that they are huge structural barriers, and the harder it gets, for example, to get social care, which is getting harder for disabled people in the UK, that's going to impact on people's ability to kind of get a job, hold down a job as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Switching gears a little. So we are a new charity, we're a new company in the UK. We registered last year and we are still getting off the ground. I want to ask Raj Iyer, who's had the joy of managing two charities, how easy or difficult it is for charities to work here with the primary motive of Sarthak in the UK is to generate the funds so that we can work for the empowerment of people back in India. And fundraising is not easy because there are only limited funds and so many say people and organizations asking for that. So what are your say 2 words of wisdom on how should we approach the market here for fundraising?
Thanks, Abhishek, and thanks for having me. Yeah, it's there are no straightforward answers to this, but I think the cause is quite a strong one, and the cause of differently able people is pretty high in the agenda of of individuals. I think what happens in any fundraising or support. Fund is one aspect of it. It's all about the support from individuals. I see in the charity I run, it's not about the money, it's for people coming together and doing the right amount of support in different ways. I think the cause is important, and how does one relate to the cause? Basically, if somebody's gone in his own family or in his own circle or in his own vicinity, the challenges that everybody else is facing. So I know I used to charities in marathons, and people that with me, they used to run for cancer because their family had cancer. Somebody for an because suffered something, and therefore they just raise money for. So it's all about the cause and the effect that goes with it. So I think when it comes to differently able people, I think there's each of us have had members, friends who have had challenges. And I'm just going to add the definition of differently able people slightly more than the context in which we are talking, because one of the other charities that we work for, called as Mitra Seva, looks after senior citizens and people who are, but once they get past a certain age, they can't do the things that they used to do before. And for me, that also is in some ways a form of differently able over a period. And my father was bedridden for 10 years. My grandfather had a hearing problem, and when you approached me and said, can you help us, it was a no-brainer for me. And I think there's a lot of us who had to support. And when we reach out to people, I'm sure they will step in, and they will provide financial support, physical support, and support in all shapes or form. But the key thing is to really reach out to them, and also have a very structured and a planned approach to really making things happen. So again, I'm sure we have a lot of intellect, strength here in this group, as I can see. And I'm sure, if we plan and structure ourselves in the best possible way, I think there will be a lot more support that you can expect in all shapes and forms. So that should be my 2 words of wisdom and advice here.
Wonderful. Thank you, Raj. Thank you. I also want to bring in ideas from people who are joining us for the first time here. We have people from Singapore and Hong Kong. So starting with Giselle. Giselle, what do you think we could do more to promote inclusion and to promote the cause that Sarthak has in India?
Right. I think one of the experiences I can share with all of you here is that when I was in Hong Kong before moving over to London, I was working with corporate in the corporate world, where we also with an organization called Dialogue in the Dark. So it's kind of a promotion of to draw people's awareness of how actually people cannot see things would impact a normal person's daily life. So we create the experience of, you know, having an hour of, let's say, just dinner. Normally when how we dinner in a normal way, but actually when it's put into the dark, we can truly experience how the blind people should, you know, eat, or how difficult they should pick up food, and how more we can do to provide the facilities or assistance in, you know, getting things done for these gifted people.
Thank you.
So I think that can, of course, can, you know, elaborate or expand it to different part of the world, not only for just India, but also in UK as well, for sure.
Okay. And Mr. Patnayak, if you're here, do you have any ideas, anything to share with us?
See, as far as special ability is concerned, it started from my family as well. When my grandmother suddenly became blind, and of course she passed on now in 2013 she passed on. But then yes, it happened there, and then I'm a marine engineer, and one of my own batchmates, my age, and he lost his sight about in Singapore in 2017. One fine day, I got a call from his wife. He can't see anymore. So when I heard the story of Dr. Jitendra, Dr. Agarwal, and I said, "Wow, this is something similar one." And then I got, and there were so many things that they could not achieve. I mean, he had a full-fledged running marine engineer's job, super Singapore, and he couldn't see. What I realized at that time was there was so much possible as well. Like for a period of time, he could his own Excel sheets. He could handle his own work despite the disability. And even now, today, when I'm here speaking to you all, he was on one of our. We run a small musical from Singapore. Dr. Agarwal was there on once he was there because we also have a segment called the Real Life Heroes, and that's where Dr. Agarwal was there on Samaro a few months ago. And then it was of course introduced by Dr. Devashish Majumdar. We call him Devashish Da. We happen to be from the alumni, and I was pretty impressed by what he was doing out there. And then since then we have been associated with trying to get in touch with such people and be of some help. And when Devashish Das said, he told me about 2 days ago that there's this panel discussion on by Sarthak to garner kind of a support from all over. So I was immediately drawn to it, and I would love to work with Devashish Da and take this forward in whichever format we can. Special ability is something which is not a choice. It just happens. And my association has been from a long time, right from my college time when we were dealing with children. Then I'm a musician. Apart from being a marine engineer, I'm a musician. I'm associated with. We go to those places. We can provide some support in some format in Singapore as well. And there is a lot that can be done. It's just that to people, whether it is in Singapore, whether it is in UK. But I would love to work along with Mr. Devashish Majumdar, to take this forward in Singapore. I mean, definitely they have to be included in the society. There's a lot that can be done. There is employment that can be generated. I mean, I was impressed when Tracy was saying about an organization being run by such people. Yes, this batchmate of he runs some starvation. He runs a chapter. We even he's replying WhatsApp messages as if he has nothing. I mean, he has no disability at all. He is such a special guy. He was today evening, about 1 hour ago, he was on one of our 100th episode we were celebrating today. And he participated there like a normal. I mean, we could figure out that. But yes, I know that he cannot see. So yes, Abhishek, there's a lot that can be done.
Yeah,
a lot that can be done, and a lot of support can be garnered even from Singapore. I would love to work with Sarthak to bring something out of Singapore, create a Singapore chapter, or with the guidance of Mr. Devashish.
Thank you very much. Thanks. And I want to go to Mrs. Kapoor now, who's been listening very patiently. How can yoga help?
Yeah. Actually, I've been listening to all of you, and one thing I'd like to say is we can't only be focusing on employment. In Hong Kong, I was working at the Korean International School, and they were participating with something called the Rainbow Project. What they were doing was they were insisting that every classroom would have at least 3 to 4 differently abled children, not just for the sake of these children, but for the sake of every child to learn that it doesn't matter that some kids are different to look at, or different in their level of understanding, or different on how they walk or use their arms or their eyes or anything. And this whole thing is to make all of us think that just because somebody is different doesn't mean that they need to be treated differently. They deserve to be as much part of normal society as anybody else. I think that is where we focus, that from the very beginning of kids should understand that right to different. Kids who are not different to understand that it's all to be different, and kids who are to understand that it's perfectly okay to be the way they are. And I think we need to start working right from the bottom and sort of work down from the bottom upwards.
In their mind over matter.
Absolutely.
I would like to respond to Mrs. Kapoor. The notion what you carry in terms of that we are treating them differently, it's not that. The idea of bringing them to jobs is to mix with the normal people. That's the whole idea about it, not to get separately. So in India, the way we have nurtured Sarthak last 12, 13 years I've been there, we have brought them to the mainstream, even earning a meager 10 to 15,000, 20,000. The kind of happiness and smile they get on their faces is incomparable to people like us who even crave for our increment. So these people have a totally different thought process, but by giving them employment, making them sustainable, making them self-sufficient is something which they vouch for, because they cannot live on charity for their lives. So far, many of the kids have been a liability on their parents, but by getting jobs, they become an asset. At least the expenditure doesn't go on to them. So they bring back cash home. So the notion of taking them differently is not there. The idea to get them jobs is to mix with the society. We do a lot of handholding in the corporates and the organizations where they work, so that how you treat these people is very important, because they will run away from the job after a month. But then how the peers, the colleagues, the seniors, juniors have to treat them or behave with them, live with them is a very important aspect. So the whole idea is to bring them to the mainstream. That was my point. Thank you.
Absolutely. And it should start from the time they are very little. They should be included in the classroom, in the playground, at every step of their journey.
Sure.
In the workforce, absolutely.
Abhishek, I have just got one point. Can I say?
Sure.
Yeah, this is just to bring what Mr. Bhargav and Mrs. Kapoor were saying. And once we deal with these differently able people, we have realized. I've heard these from Mr. Bhargav when I was in Delhi also, because anybody who's recruited when who are non disabled, they may be disabled in some portion, like they may be orthopedically disabled, mentally disabled. But when they're given a job, they are fantastically intelligent. They are more intelligent than normal people. I have heard a story from Mr. Bhargav that he has given jobs for some blind people in Nokia or some other company. And then it was, remember, you told me, and then these people were working on the computer. They were blind people and just were putting data, and they were 10 times faster than a normal human being. So these sort of things are there. We are not only doing a favor to them, we might, they might be very good in certain things when in certain things of the work. Anyway, thank you.
Wonderful. And I want to move to Mr. Rajesh Ranjan Singh to get some ideas on fundraising for Sarthak in the UK, Europe, whichever country people are in. How do we raise funds for them? Of course, there are activities like marathons, like events, but what do you think is a good way of one promoting Sarthak and also getting some money for these trainings that we are?
Definitely. I'll come to that question. I raised my hand just to add one bit on the discussion that was already happening and the point that you raised, Jitendra, about what's missing. So I can speak from the point of view of a small employer. We're not a big company, we do good business, but we have a team of say 5 to 7 people, right? Now, if I want to employ somebody who's differently able, the first concern in my mind is what rule am I not going to follow when I employ them or after they have come into my company. The concern is will the authorities come down clamping, or will the HR come down clamping like you didn't do this, you're supposed to do this. Like there's thousands of rules that you need to follow, and we are not trained. There is no support, or there must be support available, but it's not readily available and it's not in our face. So we don't really know how to go about it, and once we do employ, what's the best procedure, and it serves as service to ourselves as well. So that's one of the concerns as a smaller employer that we have in taking on disabled people. Okay, now coming to your second question about fundraising, I mean the usual methods of doing and becoming ambassadors and cheerleading is of course a really great way of doing it. I mean, in the last 10 years I've probably raised over 100,000 pounds just doing different events. So I think if we have enough ambassadors taking this, passionate about the cause, remember who was saying, but yeah, I think Raja, have someone in your family, if one of has suffered from something, it gives people a much more vested interest in becoming an ambassador for this cause rather than having no interest. So if people have some kind of experience of disability and them having their loved ones having suffered or them having suffered, because I do also know that it's not just the person who are caring for them are also suffering, right? And they suffer in multiple ways as well, sometimes much more than the person who is actually disabled who's suffering. We all love to control the way we to go, and of course life doesn't go that way, right? And when it doesn't go, we just are suffering. So and get people who are willing to be ambassadors, then we can actually start causing events. As actually have some KPIs of how many events we want to cause in the year, how much funds we want to raise. Also a roadmap of where those funds will be employed. Like if say 5,000 pounds or 2,000 pounds, this is how we'll use it. So when people donating can see that oh, 100 pounds, then this is good, they are much more likely to put the money on the table. Thanks for giving me an opportunity.
Absolutely, makes complete. In moving and looking at the clock, I want to open the floor for Q&A if someone wants to ask. And while you are thinking of having the courage to ask the first question, I have one in the chat. I have a question, which is how do people with disability normally stay motivated in their job? Can you mention a strategy or a mindset? Would like to have a stab at it. People who have recruited people.
Abhishek, I would also like to have Commodore Ashok. He wanted to say something before. He wants say Ashok. What this thing? He alumni of marine engineers here, and he's the director. And from his college, all the marine engineers passed out who who can be later donators for us, because once they earn a lot of money, and then, but if the thought, all awareness, if you're made aware, some people we are aware. I have nobody disabled in my family, nobody. Necessary that somebody has to be disabled. This thing, I've gone to these LD and I've seen the people and seen. So Commodore Ashok is a very senior person. Like, sir, can you say differently abled peoples?
Thanks, Mr. Majumdar, and honor to be here. I would like to at the starting itself, and let there be a very healthy difference of opinion on that. I have certainly using the word disability, as you said, start calling these people as differently enabled or specially enabled. Because if they are disabled in one domain or one angle, they are definitely very good in some other angle. So using this word of disability with them, if as long as we avoid, I think it would be better for them, because this itself does not give confidence to them. And I worked for 35 years in Indian Navy where we do it, and we debarred this word using disability, differently enabled or specifically enabled. Second is there are two domains. One starts from childhood itself, and then the youth whom are looking for the job. This rightly said that we should limit to only searching for jobs, because somebody is differently enabled, his innings starts right from childhood, and the graduation and the confidence building takes time. So we should look it into the wider domain. Yes, there is a lot of scope of I would talk about India giving a lot of boost to this noble cause in India. Abroad, which in Singapore and Hong Kong, the alumni will take over, spread this message. I'm also going to speak to my son to how this, he runs a big company in Gurgaon itself, what Mr. Agarwal said, they have got an office at how we can take this noble cause forward. It's a very, very noble. There are a lot of domains which need to be covered also, as I said, starting from childhood, and not only concentrate on people or rather the youth. So it's a very, very wide domain. There are a lot of colleges or schools who are giving specifically skill enhancement trainings to people who are differently enabled, depending upon after determining in which field he can be very, very specifically enabled. Mr. Agarwal must be knowing about it. Also, he has spent almost 15 years for this noble cause. So I would be in touch with him. I would also spread the word around the DMET community around that this is a very, very noble cause and we must support it to the best of our ability. Thanks for calling me here. It was a and I went through the website. Sarthak also came to know a lot of things are happening. It is almost in all the cities in India and this thing. So my best wishes to Mr. Agarwal and all those who are associated with Sarthak. And so Devashish, I must congratulate you for taking the lead of establishing this Sarthak in UK. All the best to you for this endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Comrade Ashok. Thank you. And going back to that question about motivation, how do people stay motivated in their job, and is there a strategy or mindset for that? If you have an answer, you can think of an answer and send it our way. We will take it to the person who asked. But are there any other questions?
Abhishek, just one thing to say about motivation is, we try to put on motivations like an icing on a mud pie, as if, there is a condition of not motivated and then we are trying to do something to motivate people. But really the thing to get is people's default state is motivated. And if motivation is not showing up for them, then it is because there is something in the way. Right? So mostly what's there in the way is the environment. When the environment doesn't listen to them in a way that they would like to listen to, and that's the time when all these self-doubt and all of that start coming in and people don't experience motivation, right? So I think the biggest effort and work that we need to do is in training the environment of the people. You see, somebody who's born blind or somebody who's born with one limb less, they're not thinking that I'm disabled. It's the world that convinces them that you are somehow smaller or less than us. Till the time somebody tells a blind person you are blind and you are not able to do that, that is the world for them. It's no different. They are totally motivated inside that world. And then the world brings it upon them that you are a bit less than rest of us. So that's where the work really needs to be done. Thank you.
Yeah. It's for the environment.
I'll give you an example of how a person feels motivated when he or she gets employed. We had a classical case of a guy in Bhopal. We have a center there, and the guy got trained at our center for 3 months. And Nishtha, who's on the call, also will recall that. So this guy got a job after having at the center. After the job, he got married. In the meantime, he could buy a motorbike, and he got a child as well after a couple of years. But every time when there was some celebration in his family, he used to come to the center to celebrate. Reason being that because of this center only, I got a job. When I got a job, I could buy a bike for me. He could drive. He was orthopedically challenged, but able to drive a bike. He said I could have a bike, I could have a job. So I got married. Once I got married, I settled into life. I had a child. So the center gave me everything. So he was so motivated by this center and so attached to this center that his entire journey of initial 5-7 years, which I could follow him, was tagged to that center. Because everything for me, which I got, which I would have never got in my life, came through this Sarthak center. That's where how the internal changes in the mindset do happen with people, and they feel so delighted. Another example of motivation is about, I'll give you an example of Jaipur. There was a function to felicitate the people who got their jobs. We were giving them job certificates that after your training, you've got a job. I was on a slightly raised platform and I was calling the names of the persons to come and pick up those certificates. Then I saw one lady little far, and she was, you will not believe, she was not able to walk. She was coming to me as a reptile. I was shocked out of my wits. I said, how come I have to go there and just give her this? She was not able to stand up. And the good part was she was employed by Jaipur Rugs, a rug manufacturing company. And she was so fit for that job. The job was around 10 to 12,000 rupees a month, but she was so fit for the job because while you are weaving a carpet, you have to almost lie on the ground to weave it all the times. And this is the person who is not capable of standing up at all, was fit for the job. She was so delighted to have a job of her own and to work. So all these things, the opportunities, what they come forward, it's the mindset, our own mindset, which makes you motivated or feel motivated. And if you encourage these kind of people, then they can do wonders for you. So that's where how things happen. And this is what are the real examples I could just share, which came to my mind in the journey of these people and the journey of Sarthak.
Wonderful. Great
I
example.
saw hands up for Anirudh Chaturvedi.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. Is he? And now Robin is after that. Yes, Anirudh Chaturvedi, he's like, I have invited him. He's one of the renowned person working for British Petroleum in London, in Canary Wharf. And he's one of our alumni. Go ahead, Anirudh.
Hi, Ashish, for the opportunity to me. It's privileged to get associated with global cause. I had one thing is like in most of the companies in UK, fund like BP donate pounds. I think the company with 100 more becomes thousands. So I think Rajesh would know. I think he's told us. So yes, I think this opportunity more we contribute through our channels, it becomes double contributes to that. That's good. Another thing I was touch upon is disabilities. We talk mostly about physical disabilities, but something like mental disability, mental challenges is something which must focus upon depression and a lot of other things, which often get noticed on and people suffer very badly. I have seen quite a few people. I think that should be one of those areas we can think of coming time. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you, Anirudh. And then the last comment from Robin, looking at clock as well.
Thanks very much. Very quickly on motivation. I mean, the thing that here in the UK anyway, the thing that demotivates people with disabilities who are is constantly being rejected, and in some cases not even responded to when they apply for a job. And that kind of harks back to what was mentioned before, which is fear of knowing to deal properly with those people that are differently abled, and have particular requirements under the law and also under kind of the ethical, the moral standpoint. Absolutely, people should be accommodated for, and that's enshrined in UK law. I'm sure it's enshrined in the laws of countries presented here today. In the workplace, the thing that demotivates people with disabilities is when they're not valued, and both of those point to adjustments. And we're a technology charity, so we apply technology the challenge of applying adjustments. So we took many organizations, the expertise of those organizations, and we embedded them in a solution which is very easy for applicants to use and also for employees to use, so that they follow, in the case of disability, the social model. It talks about what things they find challenging, but it also covers, it's covers race, religion, age, gender, etc. And what comes at the other end after they've gone through the process in their profile for the or for the line manager or HR, whoever wants to see it, is exact reasonable adjustments for those individuals. I mentioned it before, it's called Clear Talents, and if you go to cleartalents.info, it's free for people to use to create a profile. At the moment, it's localized for the UK as far as, the organizations that it points at, the legal framework that it refers to, but it can be localized for other regions as well. And lastly, on the point of a diverse workforce, the reason why it's so important to make disabled individuals feel valued, and it's been touched upon here, the Office of National Statistics here in the UK has got brilliant data, as has the HSE, the Health and Safety Executive, around the more diverse a team is, and across an organisation as well, the happier it is, the higher the scores of well-being across those organisations, the more productive, the less sick leave they take. This isn't just the disabled individuals themselves being grateful for being in employment and taking less sick leave. This actually has a knock-on effect right across all the teams and the whole organisation. And the products and services that they produce, because the workforce is more diverse, are more fit for purpose and appropriate for a diverse customer base, a diverse UK or India or wherever it might be population. So yeah, everything's pointing towards making them feel valued and making sure that when they are applying for jobs, not filter them out because it looks a bit scary that they might need some accommodations.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Robin. Thanks. And just before we close, we have a very short but beautiful video of Sarthak about how it got started, how it got recognized. I request Mansi to play it for us, please.
सपने सिर्फ आंखों में ही नहीं, हमारी हिम्मत और हमारी चाहत में भी होते हैं, और जहां चाह होती है वहां राह भी होती है। आज केबीसी कर्मवीर में हमारे साथ होंगे डॉक्टर जितेंद्र अग्रवाल। एक ऐसी सोच जिसने अपने साथ साथ उन हजारों दिव्यांग भाई बहनों को आत्मनिर्भर बनाने का संकल्प ले लिया।
सपने देखना बहुत जरूरी है, बिकॉज हम सपने लेते हैं तो सपने पूरे भी होते हैं। 2004 में जब मैं सर अपने क्लिनिक पे पेशेंट पे काम कर रहा था, तो मैंने देखा कि जिस प्रोसेस को मैं पेशेंट के ऊपर कर रहा हूँ वो देख नहीं पा रहा हूँ, कुछ धुंधला नजर आ रहा है। हम लोग डॉक्टर साहब के पास गए, उन्होंने पूरा चेक किया और हमें ये डायग्नोज करके बताया कि मेरे को एरिडोमैक्युलर डिजेनरेशन है, जो कि एक ऐसी आंख की बीमारी है जिसमें आपका सेंट्रल विजन चला जाता है, पेरिफेरल रहता है, साइड से थोड़ा दिखाई देता है। बहुत मुश्किल था सर, वो क्षण आपका स्किल चला गया, मतलब आप देख नहीं पा रहे तो आप अपना काम नहीं कर पाएंगे, और काम नहीं कर पाएंगे तो जीवन बहुत स्ट्रगलिंग हो जाएगा।
जी, जब भी मेरी बातें होती थी तो इसने कभी भी ये फील नहीं किया कि मेरे साथ ये हादसा हो गया। जो बात मेरे को कहनी चाहिए वो ये मेरे से कहता था कि ये जिंदगी मिली है कुछ करने के लिए। इसकी सबसे बड़ी प्रोग्रेस का कारण इसकी धर्मपत्नी है।
इनका विजन था, डिटर्मिनेशन था कुछ करने का, कि ऐसे नहीं रहना है। कहते हैं ना कि एडवर्सिटी होता है तो अपॉर्चुनिटी आता है।
तो मैंने पूरे देश भर में रिसर्च किया सर, ऐसी संस्थाओं में गया जहाँ पे इन दिव्यांग लोगों को ट्रेनिंग मिलता था, बट रोजगार के बारे में लोग वाकिफ नहीं थे कि कैसे इनको रोजगार दिया जाए। और फिर दृढ़ निश्चय किया कि एक संस्था बनाया जाए जो कि इनको इकोनॉमिकली एम्पावर करे। हमने प्रोग्राम लॉन्च किया सर, दिव्यांग लोगों के उसमें एक गूंज आ गया कि दिव्यांग लोगों को प्राइवेट सेक्टर में नौकरी मिलने लगी। सार्थक का विजन स्टेटमेंट है, उसमें हमने प्रण किया है कि हम लोग टू एम्पावर पीपल विद डिसेबिलिटी विद डिग्निटी एंड इंटीग्रिटी। पिछले 12 सालों में 1000 से ज़्यादा एम्प्लॉयर सार्थक के साथ काम करते हैं। उनको उतना ही सैलरी मिलता है जितने नॉन दिव्यांग लोगों को मिलता है।
अभी के टाइम में कोई किसी के बिना पैसे के हेल्प नहीं करता है, बट सार्थक हेल्प भी करता है सर, और काफ़ी लोगों को एजुकेशन ट्रेनिंग वगैरह भी देता है और फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट। इट्स सो मोटिवेशनल,
बिकॉज इन लोगों में इतना सब कुछ है। अगर हम लोग हर एक दिव्यांग बच्चे के बारे में सोचें उसके बारे में, तो हम लोग हर इस पृथ्वी पे जितने दिव्यांग लोग हैं सबको एम्पावर कर सकते हैं। एंड वी कैन थिंक ऑफ ए ड्रीम फॉर ए वर्ल्ड जिसमें हर दिव्यांग आत्मनिर्भर बन जाए।
वाह, बहुत कुछ।
I can watch it countless times and I get the same goosebumps every time I watch it. Thank you very much, Dr. Agarwal, for starting this and taking it to this level. And we are fully committed to supporting you to take it to the next level. I now invite Mr. Sandeep Bhargav to give a vote of thanks to the people who attended.
Yeah, thank you very much to all of you who, some of them and many of them are there for the first time, courtesy the efforts of Mr. Debashish and Abhishek. And I think it's been a long journey for all of us in Sarthak currently. And as we move on every year, we keep on adding new and new personalities in the country and now outside the country. So I'm very thankful to people who have joined us from UK, Cyprus, Singapore, and many other locations as part of this journey. And as we move forward, I think we'll take it a lot deeper and across sections to ensure that we have a global participation in the journey of Sarthak in this country. And also there are people who have been associated with this for long, like Tracy, Robin, and Raj there for a moment, and then Rajesh have been into this sector in charities. I think Sarthak has really developed a lot in terms of taking the experiences and learnings of ours into the country to take it to any other developing country for reason. So we have an enormous talent bank. We have an enormous structure we have set up in skilling and training people and getting them employed. So whatever experiences we can share, we are going to share those. And we would like to invite your experiences and your vast experiences in your different domains to ensure that how best you can support us. So many thanks to all of you once again. Very diverse set of people, and I'm sure each one of us has the same motto to support Sarthak and support the people with different abilities. In India, we call them as Divyan, term which was called by the Honorable Prime Minister Mr. Modi. So many a times we refer as Divyanjans, not to discourage people with or calling them with people with disabilities. But in UK, for example, it is mentioned disabilities, so we use that. But depending on the situation, depending on the place where we are, I think we feel free to use it. And many thanks for all of you to get associated with us. And I'm sure as we move forward, a lot of value add will happen from you, and you are free to converse with us directly through our website, through our email address. I am also there on LinkedIn, so as Dr. Agrawal, and many of us are there on LinkedIn. So either way, we can share our experiences, and we look forward to get your rich experiences into diverse fields for the success of Sarthak. So look forward. Thank you very much for your precious time, and we look forward to interact in the future as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Abhishek, I just want to take 1 minute to just thank Mr. Bhargav. Thank you, all the people who are behind the team, Bhavna, Mansi, and Soumya, who's the interpreter here in sign language. Fantastic job, Soumya. Thank you very much. And all the people behind it. It's an immense. This is just the first webinar. We are going to continue this webinar about once a month, and this is the first of your short. And thanks for all of you to join at a very short notice and trying to support us as Sarthak. So we'll go ahead, and thank you very much, all of you. And Abhishek, you've done a wonderful job. Thanks. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Have a nice rest of the day and a good rest of the weekend.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.